The solar system vanished. Worlds, just one touch. Erased. How? The power was there. From birth. An uncontrollable force. A paradox. Boruto was born under a cloak of stars, already possessing a dangerous radiance of his own. His existence seemed like a whisper of legends, a prophecy of absolute power that in one understood, not even himself. From a young age, his energy was chaotic and devastating, causing incidents no one dared attribute to an ordinary child. His parents felt love, but also a silent terror, because every hug could mean the end of everything. He was a trapped deity, and the first manifestation of his power wasn't an explosion, but a chilling silence. At 5 years old, upon touching a flower, it withered, and the surrounding grass turned to ash. It wasn't an attack, but an accident, and the guilt weighed on his heart, a burden he'd carried ever since. You wonder how something like that could happen, but the truth is, Boruto wasn't just strong, he was an anomaly. His chakra surpassed any god or entity ever existent, a primordial force disguised as a child. This energy, a boundless ocean, was constantly seeking an outlet, and every time he was distracted, a fragment escaped, leaving a trail of annihilation. His life became a prison of precautions, where every step was an exercise in absolute control to avoid destroying what he loved. His family lived on alert, but in secret, for the fear of his own existence was a burden Boruto guarded with tooth and nail, knowing that revelation could mean his total isolation. It was a dark night, a slight tremor. The horizon of a distant city simply blinked out of existence. News reports spoke of an inexplicable cosmic phenomenon, but Boruto knew it had been him again, and that weight crushed him. One day, meditating to suppress his divine essence, he felt an enormous pressure, an irresistible surge of his energy. He fought against it, sweat pouring, muscles trembling, and the entire universe seemed to tremor along with him. Then a void. An eternal void in the vast cosmic tapestry, right where an entire solar system once shone. It wasn't intentional, it was a spasm, and the truth about his darkest curse revealed itself in his horror, leaving him alone with an unimaginable burden. The darkness, dense and eternal, was Boruto's only companion, and even it trembled. You see, the void wasn't just a place. It was a prison without walls, built by his own strength, and you wonder, how does one reach a point where total isolation is the only option? Boruto was there, rooted in nothingness, but his power still pulsed, demanding an outlet. The memory of the solar system exploding still echoed in his mind, a brutal blow that made him realize the darker truth. He could no longer live in the world, and the danger he posed to those he loved was a threat heavier than any enemy. The only solution, then, emerged as a cold whisper. He needed to seal himself away, and it wasn't a matter of power to contain himself, but of creating a space where his absolute strength could no longer touch the universe. He concentrated all his chakra, and the energy, once chaotic, became a sea of will. He tore a rift in reality itself, a tear in the fabric of space-time. The passage was a maelstrom of non-existent colors, but Boruto didn't hesitate, because every particle of his being cried out for peace and isolation. He crossed the threshold, and behind him, the rift closed, and the universe forgot him, leaving him in a domain where nothing existed. Then solitude set in. Can you imagine the weight of absolute silence? Not even the echo of his thoughts could fill the void. Boruto spent hours, days, eons training to suppress his energy, forcing it to quiet down in a constant battle against his own essence. But solitude is a treacherous weapon, and it begins to corrode even the strongest spirit. And you realize that the true enemy wasn't his strength, but the very absence of everything. He knew he needed a purpose, or despair would swallow him whole, and a new danger revealed itself. The idea of destroying everything was his curse. But what if there was a greater purpose? He began to search for something, anything, to justify his existence. He didn't want to be a god of destruction, and this search became a flame in his darkness, a fragile hope. And it was in this desperate search that he noticed something strange. In the middle of nothingness, a small distortion. It wasn't an external threat, but a flaw in the very fabric of the void. A crack, and you begin to wonder, how can something crack in a place that doesn't even exist? This distortion wasn't natural. It came from within, from his own power, which, even imprisoned, sought a way to manifest. It wasn't just a void, it was a mirror of his own soul. The energy bubbled, then the crack expanded, revealing not darkness, but a purple glow. The glow wasn't an exit. It was an invitation, and the energy emanating from it wasn't his, but something new and ancient, something that had been there all along, but hidden. The void wasn't so empty after all, and Boruto, for the first time, felt that his prison might actually be a trap, and something was waiting for him. The void exploded. The primordial creature devoured Boruto. But how could something exist in that nothingness? How did his prison become such a real abyss? That purple crack wasn't an exit. It was an invasion. Boruto approached the glow, feeling an ancient hunger that wasn't his. The crack didn't open. It swallowed the space, revealing a dense, sticky mist that pulsed with a sinister energy. The trap was sprung, and he was the prey. An ancestral whisper echoed, calling his name, and Boruto felt the chill of the primordial. He knew it wasn't just a being, but a predator of gods, and the approaching danger was far greater than he had imagined. From a mist, a titanic silhouette emerged, formless yet made of distorted shadows and light. Its eyes, two pulsating black holes, fixed on Boruto, and the creature's hunger was almost palpable, a hunger for divine essence. Boruto activated his chakra, a golden aura erupting to repel the invader. But the creature laughed, a sound that shattered the very silence of the void, and its presence began to drain the young man's energy, dimming his radiance with each passing second. His very existence was at stake, and Boruto felt a despair he had never experienced, because the creature didn't just want to destroy him, but to consume him, to erase him from reality. He couldn't lose. He realized that fighting with chakra was useless. It was like feeding the monster. Boruto changed his strategy. He reversed the flow, channeling not to attack, but to draw the creature into himself, into a more dangerous terrain. The being, confident in its victory, advanced towards Boruto, and the fusion of energies was a silent explosion that generated no light, but total darkness. Both vanished into the center of the void, but the fight was just beginning, and you wonder who would emerge from there. The void trembled one last time, and then a purple gaze, dense and filled with a cold intelligence, opened in the middle of nothingness. It wasn't Boruto's gaze, but something far more ancient, an observer awaiting the outcome of that macabre dance. And you wonder, where did that come from? The void exploded, but it was inside Boruto that chaos took hold. The universe vanished and darkness reigned, and you wonder how this fusion of powers could even exist in a place that shouldn't have form. The primordial creature was a cosmic venom, devouring Boruto's chakra like a hungry parasite, and each pulsation was a pain that ripped through his soul, threatening to disintegrate his very consciousness. He felt his essence drain with each passing instant. The power that was his deepest curse now transformed into the invader's sustenance. And can you imagine the excruciating agony of being consumed by your own strength, watching it turn against you? It was an unimaginable torture. The creature wasn't merely seeking his raw energy to survive, but his very memory, the divine spark that made Boruto a unique being. And this chilling truth hit him hard, showing that the enemy wanted not just to destroy him, but to erase him from all existence. Every fiber of his being screamed to fight with everything he had, to unleash his absolute power and crush the invader in a single explosion. But the voice in his mind knew that this was the perfect trap, the bait for his total annihilation and the parasite's complete victory. Then, an ancient voice whispered in his mind, not the creature's, nor his own, but something far more profound and primordial, an echo of his own cosmic consciousness guiding him toward a seemingly impossible, yet vital choice for his survival. To defeat this aberration from another plane, Boruto realized he needed to do the opposite of his divine nature. He had to reject his divinity, to become weak, to find a completely new strength, one he never sought in his journey of power. He began to seal his chakra, not to contain it within himself, but to drain it outward, like a furious river diverting its own course to avoid flooding what it loves, and the pain was unsupportable, a sacrifice of his very existence to save his own soul. The primordial creature roared with ancestral fury, feeling its meal escape and the source of its power drain away, and the purple glow observing from outside trembled in anticipation, because the game was changing in a way that no one had foreseen in that void. Boruto felt the overwhelming vertigo of mortality settling into every cell, weakness embracing him like a long-forgotten friend. But the creature was still there, furious and hungry, and the true battle, stripped of all his power, was just beginning against an enemy that no one could have imagined before. The vertigo of mortality enveloped Boruto like a cold embrace, but behind the weakness, a new clarity settled, and his body, once divine, now pulsed with a purely human strength. The primordial creature roared in fury, because the feast it expected was turning to poison, and you feel the monster's despair as its prey slipped away. The divine energy, once a chaotic ocean, retracted to a minuscule point in his chest, a voluntary sacrifice. But the pain was immense, a sensation of complete emptying. Boruto fell to his knees in the void, and the silence that followed was no longer a prison, but a sigh of relief, because the burden of absolute power had finally been laid down. The creature, once majestic in its cosmic hunger, began to wither, its distorted form writhing like smoke in the wind, and the purple glow in its eyes faded, because there was no more divinity to consume. Boruto's essence, once a beacon, was now a tiny but persistent flame, something the creature couldn't understand. He raised his head, and the void, once a stage for his annihilation, became the ground for a new battle, a fight that didn't rely on chakra, but on pure human ingenuity and will. You realize that strength wasn't in magnitude, but in the resilience to adapt, to become what no one expected. Boruto felt the non-existent ground beneath his feet, and his mind, free from cosmic pressure, sharpened, realizing that the creature, now weak, was merely a distorted reflection of his own uncontrollable power. He couldn't destroy it, but he could reform what it was, and this chilling truth hit him hard. He wouldn't fight with divine punches, but with the cunning and determination of a mortal, and his weakness became his greatest weapon against the primordial being, because the creature didn't know how to face something that had no power to devour. The void became a game of hide and seek, and Boruto was the silent predator. The creature howled, a hollow sound that echoed in the nothingness, and launched fragments of its distorted essence, desperate attacks that Boruto evaded. And you see the dance of survival, not that of a god, but of a man fighting for his own existence against the shadow of his past. With a final effort, Boruto reached out, not to attack, but to touch the creature's essence. And the touch wasn't one of power, but of an unexpected empathy. And this forced connection revealed the monster's true origin, born from the excess and the loneliness of his own divinity. He didn't destroy it, but embraced it, absorbed it back into himself, not as chakra, but as a part of his own humanity, a constant reminder of the danger of power without purpose. The creature dissolved into a soft glow, and the purple gaze that watched the void, the eye that was his own fragmented consciousness, finally closed. Boruto took a deep breath, and the void, once oppressive, became a place of peace, and the universe, though still lost to him, was no longer a threat. The curse had been broken, and the strongest god was, finally, just a man, and he had proven that the greatest strength of all was the ability to surrender to who you are. The sacrifice was complete, and Boruto opened his eyes, feeling the sun, or what he imagined to be the sun, on his face, and the journey of his redemption was only just beginning. And can you imagine what a man, free from his curse, would do with a second chance? If you enjoyed this epic journey, drop a like to support the channel and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos, because there's so much more incredible content waiting for you on the channel.